Distress signal. The Deathworlder fleet is moving in. Part 5. The final 6 hours were the longest of Captain Deho's life. The engine was dying. Fires burned on 4 decks despite all efforts to contain them. The main reactor was operating at temperatures that should have caused complete meltdown. Half the weapons were offline. Life support was failing in multiple sections, but they kept fighting. Every remaining gun fired. Every missile tube launched until ammunition ran out. When the kinetic accelerators depleted their shells, the crew manually loaded mining charges from the cargo hold and fired those instead. They were less effective, but better than nothing. Commander Taewon coordinated the defense with cold precision. His tactical board showed their situation clearly. They were outnumbered 5-1, outgunned, damaged, running on emergency power and determination alone. The transports just reached minimum safe distance, he reported. They can jump to faster than light speed now. Tell them to go, Deho ordered. Get those people to safety. The transports vanished into the void, carrying 3,000 colonists to council stations where they would be processed and cared for. The human fleet had accomplished its mission. Now came the hard part, surviving. Chief Engineer Yoonji appeared on the command screen. Her face was covered in soot and blood. Captain, the reactor will fail in 30 minutes. Maybe less. I've done everything I can. You've done more than enough, Chief. Prepare to abandon ship. Sir, if we abandon now, the remaining devourers will pursue the transports. Deho knew she was right. The swarm was persistent. They would chase fleeing prey across systems. Then we buy more time. How much can you give me? 20 minutes at current output. After that, the reactor goes critical whether we want it to or not. 20 minutes it is. All ships prepare for final engagement. We're going to clear this system of every last devourer. The remaining human vessels formed a wedge formation with the Incheon at the center. They were battered and broken, but they moved with purpose. This was not a retreat. This was a charge. The destroyers Ulsan and Gwangju led the attack. They drove straight into the thickest part of the devourer swarm, weapons firing continuously. Explosions bloomed around them like deadly flowers. Devourer vessels died by the dozens. The assault carriers, designed for troop transport rather than combat, provided supporting fire with their point defense systems. Even the hospital ship Seoul fired its emergency weapons, targeting devourers that got too close to the transport's escape route. On what remained of the Incheon's bridge, Deho watched the countdown timer. 15 minutes until reactor failure. The swarm was thinning. The human weapons had taken a terrible toll, but there were still hundreds of devourer organisms left. All power to weapons, Deho ordered. Life support shields everything. Give it all to the guns. The temperature on the bridge rose dramatically as climate control shut down. The crew began to sweat. Some struggled to breathe in the thinning air, but the weapons fired faster, brighter, more deadly than before. 10 minutes. The Ulsan took critical damage and started to drift. Its crew evacuated in pods. The Gwangju moved to cover them, taking hits meant for its sister ship. 5 minutes. The Incheon was shaking itself apart. Deck plates buckled. Bulkheads groaned under stress. Unji's voice came one last time. Captain, this is it. Reactor failure imminent. I'm ordering my people to the pods. Go, Chief, you earned it. Thank you for everything. Deho looked at his command crew. Taewon at tactical. Lieutenant Bora at communications. Ensign Kyung-soo at navigation. They had stayed at their posts while others evacuated. Time to go, people. We held long enough. Captain, what about you? Taewon asked. Someone needs to keep the ship on course. Make sure the reactor explodes where it will do the most damage to the swarm. Then I'm staying too. You'll need help with manual control. Commander, that's not necessary. With respect, sir, yes it is. We started this together. We finish it together. Lieutenant Bora and Ensign Kyung-soo nodded. They stayed at their stations. Deho felt pride and sadness mix in his chest. These were good people. The best humanity had to offer. All right then, let's make this count. The Incheon turned toward the largest concentration of devourer vessels. Its engines, already failing, gave one last surge of power. The ship accelerated, faster and faster, straight toward the heart of the swarm. 3 minutes. The other destroyers realized what was happening. They moved to support the Incheon, clearing its path, ensuring nothing would stop its final run. 2 minutes. The devourers tried to scatter, but they were too slow. The massive human ship, once so powerful and now a dying hulk of metal and fury, drove into them like a spear. 1 minute. It's been an honor serving with you all, Deho said quietly. Honor is ours, Captain, Taewon replied. The Inchin's reactor went critical. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away. It consumed the ship, the crew who stayed behind, and 400 Devourer vessels in an instant. The blast wave scattered the remaining swarm, breaking their formation completely. The other human ships did not waste the sacrifice. They hunted down the scattered Devourers systematically. No mercy, no prisoners. By the time the sun rose over what remained of Kepler 442c, the system was clear. The Devourer swarm was extinct. Again. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council held a memorial service. It was unprecedented. Never before had the Council honored military forces from a member species. But the public demand had been overwhelming. Representatives from 47 species attended. The chamber was silent as Ambassador Jinho read the names of the dead. 43 Marines who died on the ground, 112 crew members who died on the Busan, 27 who died with Captain Deho on the Inchin. Each name was followed by a moment of silence. Speaker Velenthor stood to speak. His opposition to human military action was well known, but today his voice was somber. The Council owes humanity a debt we cannot repay. We received a distress call. We acknowledged it, and we did nothing. The humans heard the same call and they acted. They crossed the void. They fought, they died. For people they had never met. For species they barely knew. This is not the behavior of conquerors. This is the behavior of protectors. He paused, looking at Jinho. Ambassador, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize. We were wrong. About humanity. About what Deathworlders represent. You have shown us that violence and compassion are not opposites. Sometimes compassion requires violence. Sometimes protecting the innocent means being willing to fight and die. The Council voted unanimously to create the Emergency Response Fleet. Humanity would lead it, providing ships, troops, and command structure. Other species would contribute resources and support. Never again would a distress call go unanswered because help was too far away. On Earth, the families of the dead received honors and compensation. But more importantly, they received respect. The entire planet mourned the loss of their protectors. Statues were erected. Schools were renamed. The story of the Kepler rescue was taught to children as an example of humanity at its best. Private Hyagin recovered from her injuries. Her arm was saved through a combination of human and alien medical techniques. She received medals and praise. When asked about her actions, she was uncomfortable with the attention. I just did what anyone would do. I protected the children, the interviewer pressed. But you nearly died. You threw yourself in front of a creature that was trying to kill you. Hyejin shrugged. They were kids. Kids should not have to die because adults failed to protect them, that's all. It was such a simple statement, such a human statement. The galaxy watched that interview and understood something fundamental about Deathworlders. They were not cruel. They were not mindless killers. They were people who had learned on a harsh world that the only way to survive was to protect each other. And when they joined the galactic community, they brought that instinct with them. On Kepler 442c, the colony was being rebuilt. The Council provided resources. Multiple species sent aid. But the humans sent more than money and materials. They sent engineers like Yunji who had survived the battle. They sent medical staff trained by Lieutenant Sora. They sent security consultants who taught colonists how to defend themselves. Administrator Hyunwoo oversaw the reconstruction. The new colony would be different, stronger, better defended. But in the central square, he placed a monument. It was simple black stone with names carved into it. The names of every human who died protecting his people. Above the names, an inscription in multiple languages. They came because we called. We will never forget. Security Chief Soman asked him about it. Do you think they'll come again if we need them? Hyunwoo looked at the monument. Remembered Sergeant Youngsu's words. Remembered watching the Incheon explode to save them. Yes, they will always come. That is what makes them human. Researcher Kyungmin published her findings about the Devourers. Working with human scientists, she had determined that the swarm was not extinct as the Council believed. There were other colonies scattered across the galaxy, dormant, waiting. One day they would wake and threaten other worlds, but now the galaxy was prepared. The emergency response fleet trained constantly. Human tactics and Deathworld thinking spread through their ranks. Distress signal, the Deathworlder fleet is moving in. Part 4, the battle entered its 8th hour. In orbit above Kepler 442c, the human fleet was showing serious damage. The engine had lost 2 of its main guns. Hull breaches leaked atmosphere on multiple decks. Emergency bulkheads held, but barely. Captain Deho gripped his command chair as another impact shook the ship. Alarms blared constantly. His crew worked with focused intensity, their faces tight with concentration. They were tired, hurt, and pushing equipment past every safety limit. But they did not stop. Captain, Shield Generator 3 just failed, Commander Taewon reported. We're down to 60% coverage. Redirect power from life support to weapons, Deho ordered. Sir, that will make the ship uncomfortable for most of the crew. They'll survive. The colonists won't if we lose this fight. Chief Engineer Yunji's voice crackled through the communication system. Her words were interrupted by the sound of explosions. Captain, the reactor is approaching critical temperature. I can give you maybe 1 more hour at full power. 1 hour is enough. Keep it running. The remaining destroyers formed a protective screen around the Incheon. They took hits meant for the flagship, their smaller frames absorbing punishment that would have crippled the larger vessel. One destroyer, the Daegu, lost all power to its engines but continued firing from a static position until its ammunition ran out. The Devourers adapted constantly. They learned to avoid the kinetic shells by predicting their trajectories. They started using debris as shields against the plasma lances. They targeted the human ship's weak points with unsettling accuracy. But the humans adapted too. Commander Taewon changed targeting patterns every few minutes. He mixed real missiles with decoys. He fired kinetic shells at random intervals to prevent prediction. It was exhausting work that required constant creativity and split-second decisions. On the ground, Sergeant Youngsu's Marines held a defensive line that should have collapsed hours ago. They had started with 200 soldiers. Now they were down to 157 combat-effective troops. 43 were dead or too injured to fight. Private Hyejin had been in continuous combat for 7 hours. Her armor was scarred and dented. One section of it was melted where Devourer acid had eaten through. She had switched to her 3rd rifle after the others jammed or broke. Her hands ached. Her ears rang from constant gunfire. But she kept fighting. A group of colonist children became separated from their escort during an evacuation. They were trapped in a building surrounded by Devourers. Hijin heard their terrified calls on the emergency channel. This is Private Hijin. I'm closest to their position. Moving to assist. Wait for backup, Youngsu ordered. No time, Sergeant. They have maybe 2 minutes. Hijin ran toward the building. Devourers spotted her and changed direction. She fired on the move, dropping 3 before she reached the entrance. Inside, she found 6 children of 3 different species. They cried when they saw her. It's okay. I'm here to help. Follow me and stay close. She led them toward the evacuation point. Devourers attacked from both sides. Hijin positioned herself between the creatures and the children. She fired with precision, making every shot count. But there were too many. One Devourer broke through. It was seconds from reaching the children. Hijin threw herself in front of it. The creature's mandibles closed on her shoulder. Her armor held for a moment, then cracked. Pain exploded through her body. She screamed and jammed her sidearm under the creature's head. She emptied the entire magazine. The Devourer died falling on top of her. She could not move it. Blood ran down her arm. The children stared at her with wide, terrified eyes. Keep running, she told them through gritted teeth. Don't stop. Follow the lights to the transport. Corporal Jaewon arrived with his squad seconds later. He killed the remaining Devourers and lifted the dead creature off Hijin. Her wound was bad, very bad. Medic, he shouted. The children? Hijin asked. Safe. You saved them. Hijin smiled weakly, then passed out. In the field hospital, Dr. Jihoon and Lieutenant Sora worked on a steady stream of casualties. Human Marines with missing limbs kept asking when they could return to the fight. Colonists with injuries that should have killed them survived because human medical technology was more advanced than Council standard. Lieutenant Sora had been working for 9 straight hours. Her hands were steady despite exhaustion. When they brought Private Hyejin in, Sora took one look at the wound and started barking orders. The shoulder was nearly severed. The acid had eaten through muscle and bone. We can save the arm, Sora said. But it will take time we don't have. Dr. Jehoon looked at the young Marine's face. She looked so peaceful, unconscious. Then we make time. This soldier saved 6 children. We will not let her die or lose her arm. They worked together, alien and human, using techniques from both their medical traditions. Jehoon's species had advanced regeneration technology. Sora's combat medicine training taught her to stabilize trauma in impossible conditions. Together, they gave Hyejin a chance. In the council chambers, Ambassador Jinho argued his case before an emergency session. The battle had been raging for 8 hours. Every species in the galaxy was watching now. Young Minji had made sure the footage was everywhere. The humans violated our space, Speaker Velenthor declared. They deployed military forces without authorization. This cannot be tolerated. 3,000 beings are alive because of those violations, Jinho countered. The council received the same distress call. The council did nothing. The humans acted. Now you want to punish them for having the courage you lacked? Councillor Binna stood. I propose we table the question of violations until after the crisis is resolved. We can debate rules later. Right now people are dying, and human soldiers are dying to save them, Jinho added. 43 Marines dead, hundreds wounded. 1 destroyer destroyed, and they are still fighting, still protecting strangers they have never met. This is what humanity offers the galaxy. Not conquest, not domination, protection. Velenthor was not swayed. And when they finish protecting this colony, what then? Their fleet is in our space. They have proven they can reach any council world in days. They have weapons we cannot match. What stops them from deciding they should rule instead of protect? The question hung in the air. Several councillors nodded. It was a fair point. Humanity was powerful and aggressive. History had shown what happened when powerful species decided they knew better than everyone else. Jinho looked at Minji. She pulled up footage on the main display. It showed Private Hyejin throwing herself in front of the Devourer to protect alien children. It showed Corporal Jaewon dragging wounded colonists to safety while firing one-handed. It showed human Marines forming walls with their bodies to shield civilians. This is what stops them, Jinho said quietly. Humans protect. It is what they do. It is built into who they are. Yes, they are violent. Yes, they are aggressive. But that violence and aggression are aimed outward. At threats, at danger, not at the people they have sworn to defend. The council chamber was silent as they watched the footage. Species who had never understood human behavior began to grasp something fundamental. Humans came from a world that tried to kill them constantly. They survived by protecting each other, by forming bonds that transcended logic or self-interest, by deciding that some things were worth dying for. Back on Kepler 442c, the evacuation was nearly complete. The last transport prepared to lift off with Administrator Hyunwoo and his remaining staff. Security Chief Samin made a final check of the colony systems. The core reactor is set to overload, she reported. When we leave, it will explode in 30 minutes. The blast should take out any remaining devourers in the area. Hyunwoo nodded. The colony had been his responsibility for 6 years. He had watched it grow from a small outpost to a thriving community. Now it would be destroyed. But the people would live. That was what mattered. Sergeant Young-soo approached with his remaining Marines. They looked exhausted. Many were injured, but they stood straight and professional. Administrator were ready to provide final escort to the transport. Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you for everything. Just doing our job, sir. As they walked to the transport, Hyunwoo looked back at the colony one last time. The buildings were scarred and broken. Bodies of dead devourers littered the ground. In the distance, the sky still burned with the orbital battle. Sergeant, why did you come? Your people barely know us. We are not part of Earth. We owe you nothing. Yet you came and you died for us. Why? Young-soo was quiet for a moment. Because you called for help. On Earth, we have a saying. We leave no one behind. It does not matter if you are human or not. If you call for help, we answer. That is what makes us human. The transport lifted off. As it climbed toward orbit, Hyunwoo watched the colony shrink below. Then the reactor exploded. The blast wave consumed everything. The colony that had been his home vanished in fire and light. In orbit, Captain Daeho watched his status displays. The evacuation was complete. All colonists were aboard the transports. The hospital ship was packed with wounded. The mission was successful, but the cost had been terrible. The Busan destroyed, 43 Marines dead, the Incheon barely holding together, Every ship damaged. Supplies nearly exhausted. Distress signal, the Deathworlder fleet is moving in. Part 3, the human fleet entered the Kepler system like thunder. They did not slow down. They did not request permission to approach. They simply came, and their arrival shook every sensor for 1,000 kilometers in every direction. Council observer ships detected the energy signatures, and their instruments screamed warnings. The human vessels were radiating heat levels that would kill most species. Their reactor outputs showed numbers that seemed impossible. One observer captain sent an emergency message to his superiors. The humans are either insane or their technology is far beyond what we understood. Captain Deho stood in the command center of the Inchin, watching the tactical display. The planet Kepler 442c rotated slowly on the screen. Around it, like a dark cloud, thousands of devourer organisms swarmed. On the surface, red dots showed where the colony defenses still held. Those dots were shrinking. Time to engagement? Taiho asked. 8 minutes, Commander Taewon replied. The swarm has detected us. They're repositioning forces. Let them. All ships, combat formation. Target the orbital clusters first. We need to clear a path for the drop carriers. The fleet split into 2 groups. The destroyers and the Incheon moved toward the highest concentration of devourer vessels. The assault carriers held back slightly, protected by a screen of point defense systems. Chief Engineer Yoonji's voice came through the communication system. Captain, reactors are at maximum output. We can maintain this for about 6 hours before we risk meltdowns. 6 hours should be enough, Deho said. He opened the fleet-wide channel. All weapons free. Fire at will, the Incheon fired first. Its main guns were kinetic accelerators, massive rail guns that launched projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The shells were solid tungsten, designed to penetrate asteroid hulls. Against biological targets, the effect was devastating. The first salvo hit a cluster of devourer swarm ships. 17 of them simply vaporized. The kinetic energy turned their organic structures into superheated gas. The explosions lit up space like small suns. The other destroyers opened fire. Plasma lances cut through the swarm. Missile pods launched salvos of guided weapons. Each explosion took out multiple targets. The Council observers watched in stunned silence. They had never seen weapons like this. Council vessels used elegant energy beams that disabled and captured. Human weapons were designed with one purpose: to destroy completely and overwhelmingly. The Devourers tried to adapt. They had consumed thousands of worlds. They had learned to counter many different weapon types, but they had never faced Deathworld weapons before. The kinetic shells traveled too fast to avoid. The plasma burned too hot to absorb. The missiles adjusted their targeting faster than the swarm could move. In 45 seconds, the human fleet destroyed over 200 Devourer vessels. The swarm began to pull back, regrouping for a counterattack. They're learning, Taewon observed. Next wave will be harder. Good, Deho said. That means they're predictable. Continue firing. Don't let them organize. While the main fleet engaged the orbital forces, the assault carriers pushed toward the planet. Commander Taewon switched to the Marine channel. Sergeant Youngsu, you're clear for drop. Good hunting. In the deployment bay, Youngsu gave the signal. 200 Marines climbed into drop pods. These were not the careful landing craft used by Council forces. They were armored shells designed to punch through atmosphere at maximum speed, crash into the ground, and deploy soldiers in seconds. Private Hyejin checked her weapons one last time. Combat rifle, sidearm, grenades, combat knife. Standard loadout. She had trained for drops like this dozens of times. But this was her first real combat deployment. She was nervous but ready. Corporal Jaewon sat across from her in the pod. He was a veteran of the Mars conflicts. First time? He asked. That obvious? You're checking your gear for the 5th time. It's fine. Just remember your training. Stay with your squad. Keep your head down. We're going in to protect civilians, not win glory. The launch alarm sounded. Hyejin felt her stomach drop as the pod ejected from the carrier. Then came the acceleration. The G-forces pressed her into her seat with crushing weight. Her vision narrowed. She focused on breathing. The pod screamed through the atmosphere, trailing fire. From the ground, they looked like a meteor shower. 200 falling stars, each one carrying a fully armed human marine. Youngsu's pod hit first. The impact would have killed most species. Humans felt it as a hard jolt. The pod door blew open with explosive bolts. Youngsu was on his feet instantly, rifle up, scanning for targets. All around him, other pods were landing. Marines deployed with practiced efficiency. Within 40 seconds of touchdown, they had established a defensive perimeter around the colony's inner core. And just in time. The Devourers charged from 3 directions simultaneously, thousands of them, each one the size of a large vehicle with mandibles that could crush steel and acid that dissolved armor. "Contact front," someone shouted. "Open fire," Young-Soo commanded. The Marines fired as one. The sound was like continuous thunder. Human weapons were loud, violent, and incredibly effective. The first wave of Devourers died before they crossed half the distance to the defensive line, but more kept coming. The swarm learned quickly. They spread out, used cover, coordinated their attacks. Some of them started to break through. Private Hyojin found herself facing 3 Devourers that had flanked around a collapsed building. Her training took over. She fired controlled bursts, aiming for the joints where their armor was weakest. 1 went down. 2 kept coming. Her rifle clicked empty. No time to reload. She drew her sidearm and kept firing. 1 more down. The 3rd was almost on her. She could see its mandibles opening. Then Corporal Jaewon was there. He slammed into the creature with his full body weight, knocking it off balance. His combat knife flashed. Black blood sprayed across the ground. The Devourer collapsed. "Stay aware of your surroundings," Jaewon said calmly, as if they had not just nearly died. "Reload." Hyejin's hands shook as she loaded a fresh magazine. Around her, the battle raged. But the Marines held the line. Not one of them broke. Not one retreated. This was what they trained for. This was what humans did. Inside the colony control room, Administrator Hyunwoo watched the battle through external cameras. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. The humans had been on the ground for less than 10 minutes and they had already stabilized the entire defensive perimeter. "How are they doing this?" Salmon asked in wonder. "They're from Earth," Hyunwoo said. "Security Chief, coordinate with their commander. Get our people ready for evacuation." Salmon opened a channel to Sergeant Young-Soo. "This is Colony Security Chief Salmon. We have civilians ready to move." "Where do you need us?" Young-Soo's voice came back calm despite the weapon fire in the background. "Send them to the landing zone in groups of 50. We'll provide escorts. Medical cases first." Within minutes, the evacuation began. Human Marines guided groups of terrified colonists through the battle zone. When Devourers attacked, the Marines formed protective walls with their own bodies. Several took hits that would have killed civilians, but their armor held. Dr. Jihoon met the human medical team at the landing zone. They had set up a field hospital in what used to be a storage warehouse. Lieutenant Sora led the medical corps, a team of 20 combat medics with equipment Jihoon had never seen before. "We can treat most species," Sora explained quickly. "Our scanners are adaptive. Just tell us what we need to know." They worked together, human and alien doctors saving lives side by side. The humans were efficient and calm. They had systems for everything. Triage, treatment, transport. They moved like parts of a single machine, each person knowing exactly what to do. Researcher Kyung-min approached Young-Soo during a brief pause in the fighting. "Sergeant, I've been studying these creatures. They have a weakness. Their swarm coordination relies on bioelectric signals. If we could disrupt those signals," Young-Soo immediately understood. "They'd lose coordination, become easier to fight." He opened his command channel. "Commander Taewon, are you hearing this?" In orbit, Taewon was already working on the problem. "We can reprogram our sensor arrays to emit jamming frequencies. Give me 10 minutes. You have 5, Young-Soo said. We're getting hit hard down here." The orbital battle was not going well. The Devourers had adapted to human tactics. They were using kamikaze attacks, throwing dozens of vessels at each human ship. The engine had taken multiple hits. Hull breaches were reported on 3 decks. Captain Daiho refused to pull back. If the orbital fleet broke formation, the ground troops would be exposed. "Engineering. How long until those reactors fail?" 3 hours at current output, Yunji replied. "Maybe less if we take more damage. Keep them running. All guns focus fire. Target their command organisms." Daiho had identified larger Devourer vessels that seemed to coordinate the others. Take those out and maybe the swarm would falter. The destroyer Busan was in trouble. Its shields had failed and Devourers were attaching to the hull, trying to eat through the armor. Commander Jiwon made a decision. "All crew to escape pods. I'm setting reactor overload." Distress signal, the Deathworlder fleet is moving in. Part 2, the Galactic Council chamber was normally a place of calm discussion. Today it was chaos. Representatives from 47 species filled the massive hall, and almost all of them were shouting. Speaker Velenthor stood at the center podium, his 4 arms raised for silence. His species, the Quintari, had been part of the council for over 2,000 years. They valued order above all things. The human fleet must be stopped immediately. They are violating every law we have. Councillor Binna rose from her seat. She was one of the few council members who had spent time on Earth. They are attempting a rescue mission. A colony is dying while we debate. That colony is 16 days from the nearest authorized fleet, Velenthor replied. Tragic, yes. But this does not give the humans permission to deploy military forces into our space without approval. What if this is not a rescue? What if it is the beginning of an invasion? A wave of worried sounds filled the chamber. Binna felt frustration building in her chest. An invasion? They are responding to a distress call that we received as well. A distress call that we acknowledged but cannot answer in time. The proper procedure was clear, another counselor said. Send the nearest fleet. Document the incident. Learn from what happens. Learn from what happens. Binna's voice rose. 3,000 beings will be dead before our fleet arrives. What exactly will we learn from their bodies? The chamber went quiet. It was not polite to speak so directly in council sessions, but Binna was tired of politeness. She had seen Earth. She had walked in their cities and talked with their leaders. She understood something most council members did not. Humans were different. Dangerously different. Velenthor cleared his throat. Perhaps Councillor Binna can explain to us exactly what we should expect from these human vessels. Most of us have never seen their military in action. Binna nodded slowly. I visited their ship construction facilities during my assignment. Human vessels are built according to Deathworld standards. Meaning? Someone asked. Meaning they assume everything will try to destroy them. Their armor is 3 times thicker than council standard. Their reactors run at temperatures that would cook most of our species alive. Their weapons are designed to crack asteroids and destroy battle stations. They don't use elegant energy systems. They use kinetic accelerators and plasma weapons that turn targets into vapor through pure force. The chamber was very quiet now. Someone whispered, "Why would anyone build such violent ships?" "Because on Earth, if you're not ready for violence, you die," Binna said simply. Their planet has storms that level cities, earthquakes that split continents, predators that hunt in packs, other humans who fight over resources. Everything on Earth evolved to kill or be killed. The humans who survived were the ones who learned to fight back harder. Aboard the Inchin, Captain Deho stood in the command center watching multiple screens. His strike group moved through space in tight formation. 6 destroyers, 2 assault carriers, and 1 hospital ship. They were pushing the engines at 140% of normal capacity. The heat warnings were constant. Commander Taiwan approached with a data pad. "Captain, we've analyzed the distress signal more carefully. The situation is worse than we thought." "Show me." Taiwan pulled up images on the main screen. Dark shapes moved across a planet's surface. They looked organic, like insects, but each one was the size of a building. "These aren't raiders. They're devourers." The council thought they were extinct. Deho frowned. "What are devourers?" "Swarm species. They consume everything. Minerals, plants, animals, buildings. They strip a planet bare and move to the next one. The council wiped them out 300 years ago, or thought they did. How many are we looking at?" Taiwan's expression was grim. "Current estimates suggest at least 5,000 individual organisms. Maybe more. The colony never stood a chance, but we do," Deho asked. "We're bringing 300 Marines, full combat gear, and enough firepower to level a mountain range. If we can't stop them, nothing can." Taiwan paused. "The real question is whether we'll arrive in time." In the lower decks, Sergeant Youngsu was briefing his Marines. 200 soldiers sat in the deployment bay checking weapons and armor. Most were young, but all were veterans of Earth's various conflicts. Humanity had not fought a major war in 20 years, but small conflicts never stopped. These Marines knew combat. "Listen up," Youngsu said. "We're deploying to protect a mining colony from hostile organisms called devourers. Think giant bugs that eat everything. The colony has 3,000 civilians. Men, women, children, multiple species. Our job is simple. Get to the colony. Hold the defensive line. Keep those people alive until evacuation is complete." A young private raised her hand. "Sergeant, we've never deployed to protect non-humans before." "What if they don't want our help?" "Then they're stupid," Youngsu said bluntly. "But I don't think that'll be a problem. People who are about to die usually appreciate rescue, regardless of who does the rescuing. He looked around at his troops. Check your gear. We drop in 5 days. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Yunji was performing miracles. The engines were screaming in protest. Coolant systems were working overtime. She had 3 crews rotating constantly to keep everything functional. Chief, Reactor 2 is overheating again, one of her assistants called. Dump heat through the auxiliary vents. If that doesn't work, we'll run it hot. The reactor can take it. For how long? Long enough to reach the colony. After that, we can worry about repairs. The assistant looked worried. What if we need to fight when we arrive? Yunji smiled. Then we fight with overheated reactors. Won't be the first time. On Kepler 442c, the situation grew more desperate by the hour. Administrator Hyunwoo watched from the control room as another section of the outer wall failed. The devourers poured through like a dark tide. Security Chief Somin coordinated the defense forces. They had weapons designed for mining operations, not warfare. Every shot had to count. Fall back to Checkpoint 7. Abandon the east sector. Dr. Ji-hoon worked in the medical center treating wounded colonists. The injuries were terrible. The devourers didn't just kill. They consumed. People who survived attacks were missing limbs, chunks of flesh. His supplies were running low. Researcher Kyungmin studied samples of devourer tissue under a microscope. If they could find a weakness, any weakness, it might give them a chance. So far she had found nothing. The organisms were incredibly resilient. They adapted quickly to different environments. They coordinated their attacks with frightening intelligence. Hyunwoo, we have maybe 30 hours, Somin reported. After that, the inner core will be exposed, Hyunwoo nodded. He had stopped sleeping. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of the children in the evacuation shelters. The human fleet will be here in 5 days. We have to hold for 5 days, that's impossible, I know, but we have to try. A message came through on Hyunwoo's console. It was from the Incheon. Colony, this is Captain Daeho. We're pushing the engines as hard as we can. We've gained 6 hours. Arrival time is now 4 days and 18 hours. Hold on, we're coming. 4 days and 18 hours. It was still an eternity, but it was better than before. Hyunwoo sent back a simple message. We're holding. Across the galaxy, news of the human fleet's movement spread through unofficial channels. Council regulations prevented wide broadcasting of potential military actions, but information always found a way to leak. Young Minji made sure of that. She carefully transmitted footage and reports to several independent news networks. Within hours, every species in Council space knew that humans were racing to save a distant colony, while the Council did nothing. Public opinion began to shift. Citizens of dozens of species watched their screens and asked uncomfortable questions. Why weren't we helping? Why are the humans the only ones responding? What does it say about us that Deathworlders are more compassionate than we are? In the council chamber, Velenthor watched as his support crumbled. Other representatives received messages from their homeworlds. Messages asking them to reconsider. Messages suggesting that maybe the humans were right. But Velenthor was not convinced. He had studied Earth's history. He knew what humans were capable of. Yes, they could be compassionate. They could also be terrifying. They had nearly destroyed themselves in global wars. They had created weapons that could end all life on their planet. And now a fleet of ships carrying those weapons was heading into Council space at speeds that should be impossible. Let them come, Velenthor said quietly to himself. Let the galaxy see what Deathworlders truly are. Then we will know if this rescue is mercy or the beginning of conquest. The Incheon pushed forward through the darkness. Behind it, 7 other ships followed in perfect formation. Their engines burned bright against the black of space. Inside those ships, 300 Marines prepared for battle. Engineers worked to keep systems running past their limits. Medical staff set up emergency facilities. And in the command center, Captain Daeho watched the countdown timer. 4 days, 17 hours, 23 minutes. Faster, he said quietly. We need to go faster. Distress signal, the Deathworlder fleet is moving in. Cart 1, the diplomatic vessel. Harmonious light moved through the darkness of space like a silver needle threading through black cloth. Inside the ship, Ambassador Jinho sat at his desk reviewing trade documents. The negotiations had gone well. 3 new species had agreed to share technology with Earth. Humanity was slowly earning its place in the Galactic Council. Minji entered the room carrying a data pad. She was young for a diplomatic aide, barely 26, but sharp and dedicated. Ambassador, we're 2 days from Earth. The captain says the journey has been smooth. Jinho smiled. Good. I'm looking forward to real gravity again. Council station gravity is always slightly off. That's when the alarm started. The sound was soft at first, then grew louder. Red lights flickered across the walls. Jinho and Minji rushed to the bridge where Captain Suho was studying multiple screens with a worried expression. What's happening? Jinho asked. Distress signal, Suho said. Coming from Kepler 442c. It's a mining colony in the outer rim. The main screen showed a grainy image. A man with tired eyes and dirt on his face appeared. His voice shook as he spoke. This is Administrator Hyunwoo of Kepler Colony. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Unknown hostile forces have breached our outer defenses. We have 3,000 civilians here. Most are families. We need immediate assistance. The image flickered. In the background, explosions lit up the sky. Someone screamed. Then the transmission cut out. The bridge went silent. Minji felt her stomach twist. We have to help them. Captain Suho was already working on the communication system. I'm forwarding this to the nearest council station. They'll send help. Jinho nodded, but something felt wrong. He had been part of the council for 3 years now. He knew how they worked. How far is the nearest council fleet? Suho checked his screen. His face went pale. 16 days at standard council speed. And how long does the colony have? The administrator said their defenses were breaching. In situations like this, Suho paused. Maybe 2 days. 3 at most. Minji grabbed the captain's arm. Then the council fleet will be too late. Those people will die. I know, Suho said quietly. But there's nothing we can do. We're a diplomatic ship. We have no weapons, no soldiers. Jinho sat down in the captain's chair. His mind raced. He had spent years building relationships in the council. He knew the rules. He also knew the truth that humans were slowly learning about their new galactic neighbors. Most species in the council came from kind worlds with gentle weather and few predators. They were peaceful because they had never needed to be anything else. When danger came, they studied it. They discussed it. They sent researchers later to document what happened. The idea of rushing into danger to save strangers was not something most species understood, but humans understood. Humans came from Earth, a Class 12 death world where everything tried to kill you. Humans learned early that you protected your pack or everyone died, even if that pack was on the other side of the world, even if you had never met them. Get me a secure line to Earth Defense Command, Jinho said. Minji looked at him with hope. You think they'll help? I know they will. The question is whether they're close enough. The communication took several minutes to establish. When the screen finally cleared, a man in a dark blue military uniform appeared. He had sharp eyes and gray hair cut short. Ambassador Jinho, this is Captain Daeho of the UDS Incheon. We received your priority signal. What do you need? Jinho explained the situation quickly. He sent the distress signal recording. He watched as Captain Daeho's expression hardened. Where exactly is this colony? Daeho asked. Suho transmitted the coordinates. They waited while the captain consulted with someone off-screen. The seconds felt like hours. Finally, Daeho looked back at them. We're 6 days out. We've been running deep space combat drills in this sector. Pure luck that we're even close. Can you reach them in time? Minji asked. We'll have to push the engines hard. Very hard, but yes, we can make it. Daeho paused. There's a problem, though. The colony is in council space. If we deploy military forces without authorization, it's technically an act of aggression. The council could expel humanity. Remove us from all treaties. Everything we've built in 3 years could end. Jinho felt the weight of the decision. He was a diplomat. His entire career was built on following rules and building bridges. But he was also human, and 3,000 people were about to die while the council debated proper procedures. Captain Daeho, I cannot give you authorization. That's beyond my authority. I understand, Ambassador. However, Jinho continued, I can tell you that I will forward all information about this situation to Earth immediately, and I will make it clear in my report that immediate action was required. Daeho smiled slightly. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had already made his decision and was simply waiting for permission to act on it. Understood, Ambassador. We're already changing course. Incheon out. The screen went dark. Minji let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. He's going. They're really going? Yes, Jinho said, and we may have just started a war. Captain Suho was staring at his sensor screen. Ambassador, you should see this. The screen showed a tactical map of local space. 6 points of light had suddenly changed direction. They were moving fast. Faster than any council ship could move. The human fleet was not approaching carefully. They were charging in at full speed. They'll burn out their engines traveling that fast, Suho said with worry. They know, Jinho replied. They're doing it anyway. Across the galaxy, council sensors detected the movement. Alarms went off in a dozen stations. Emergency meetings were called. Messages flashed between worlds at the speed of light. A human battle fleet was moving. Fast and unannounced, heading into council space. No one knew if they were coming to help or to invade. The council had never seen human military vessels in action before. They only knew the stories. Stories about Deathworlders. Stories about a species that came from a world of storms and earthquakes and predators. A species that learned to fight because fighting was the only way to survive. Now that species was coming, and they were coming fast. On Kepler 442c, Administrator Hyunwoo huddled in the colony's control room with Security Chief Somin. Outside, the sky burned. The unknown attackers were everywhere. Their defenses were failing. How long? Hyunwoo asked. Somin checked her screens. Maybe 12 hours before they breached the inner core. After that, she didn't finish the sentence. They both knew what came after. Hyunwoo's communication console beeped. A message appeared. It was short and simple. Kepler Colony, this is Captain Daeho of Earth Defense. We received your distress call, hold on. We're coming. Hyunwoo read the message 3 times. He didn't quite believe it. The council had already told them help was 16 days away. But this message said 6 days. It was impossible unless... They're human, Somin said, reading over his shoulder. The Deathworlders are coming. Hyunwoo sent a reply. How many ships? The response came back quickly. 8 combat vessels and support. Don't worry. It's enough. 8 ships. Against an enemy that had overwhelmed their entire defense network. Hyunwoo wanted to laugh or cry. He wasn't sure which. But something in that simple message gave him hope. The confidence in those words. It's enough. Said like it was a fact. Like there was no doubt. Like humans had never heard of impossible odds. Broadcast to all colonists, Hyunwoo said. Tell them help is coming. Tell them to hold on for 6 more days. Do you really think 8 ships can stop this? Someone asked. Hyunwoo looked at the burning sky. I don't know. But the humans seem to think so. And they're coming from the only planet in the galaxy rated too dangerous for normal life. That's what worries me. Somin said. What kind of species evolves in hell and decides the solution is to build warships? Hyunwoo smiled grimly. Maybe the kind we need right now.